And I just want to continue today with the profitability. So I've done the markup, I explained that to you, but I haven't finished explaining what I wanted you to know. So let's go on. I say to you, the markup that the business have must be compared to the markup they actually achieved. And most of the times, the one you achieve is going to be lower. And the reason for that is not because stock was stolen or the owner took stock. It's always because we gave discount. And why do I give discount? Let's quickly just think about the reasons we give discount. The reasons we give discount can be because someone is a loyal customer, so we give them a trade discount. Yeah. It can be that someone asks for a cash discount because they pay cash and not take it on account. Yeah. And then clearance sales, any kind of sales. Don't just write sales because then it looks like the word sales and it can be confusing. So just add something like end of season sale, clearance sale, end of range sale. Okay, so we have not done, if you read here, they talk about a periodic system. We have not done that yet. When we do this system, we'll come back to this. But for up to now, you ignore this paragraph. Okay. You can draw a line through it with pencil because later in the year you can go erase it. But I'm going to forget, so you have to remember. Okay. So, how can I prevent my actual markup to be lower than my set out to have markup? Well, give less discounts. Give less discounts. Okay. So, number 3. This is the operating profit on sales. So in other words, now I'm going to start with gross profit plus operating income less operating expense gives me operating profit. And this is what I'm calculating now. So I'm going to put that operating profit on the sales, right? And this will actually be an indicator for you if you are managing your sales, your expenses well. Okay? You will see we will also do one where we take the operating expenses on sales. In other words, I want you to highlight these two. So these two, number 5 and number 3, is the two things. So I'm going to say here at the top, the two ratios that shows how operating expenses was managed.
Which one's in the front?
These
two, number
3 and 5. Because 5 is operating expenses on sales. And this is operating profit on sales. So I want the operating profit on sales to increase because that's an indication that my expenses is a smaller percentage of my sales than last year. Does that make sense? Because remember, you have your sales, and from your sales you get your gross profit, and from your gross profit you pay your expenses, and that which is left is your operating income or operating profit. You see? So if your expenses becomes a bigger percentage, then that's not good. You want your expenses to become a smaller percentage, meaning you actually managed it better. Let's quickly think. What expenses has a big impact on your profit? If I say to you, last year my telephone was 7,000, this year it's 27,000. Can you see there might be a lack of control there? You see? If my water and electricity account goes up tremendously, more than the increase that the municipality gives, a bigger percentage, then it could be that maybe we have a leaking pipe somewhere. Maybe people are leaving lights on in the office. It's stuff we need to control. You see where I'm going with this? Okay. Now, net profit on sales. Net profit on sales also show, is my business being managed well? That's it. And also I want this thing to increase because it makes me happy. Ne? If my net profit becomes so you can actually see your sales, ne, is divided into a part that goes to the expenses and the rest is going to be my profit. You get what I'm saying? So the smaller percentage the expenses, the bigger percentage my profit. Meaning your expenses is being managed better, and not just your expenses, even your income is managed better. Let's quickly think about sales. Sales is also managed, right? So you want your sales to increase. How can you let your sales increase?
You can increase the markup.
You can increase the markup, but what's even better? Marketing. And reading your clients better. So you are reading your clients and you can see, say you are a bathing suit shop, and you are reading your clients that you are situated right next to an old age home. So now you're going to start stocking up more on those old people bathing suits with the little skirt. Rather, I also wear that. Rather than the bikini tops. You get what I'm saying? Because what's it going to help you to have a lot of bikinis? But your clients are all older than 60. So maybe a few of them are daring, but most of them aren't. So you're going to sit with all these bikini tops. So now what are you doing? You're managing your stock better. You see? The stock that you buy and sell.
I think the location of this business is the management.
Okay, so I've actually already explained the percentage expenses on sales. So I want this to decrease. That makes me very happy. Ne? If I can limit my expenses. You can go read through all of that. Solvency. So now, solvency is your total assets to your total liabilities. And last year I actually already explained it to you very in detail, but I'm going to do it again. So your total assets, the money value of your total assets is called your estate. And remember, so this is long-term stuff, right? Because I want to see my total assets, meaning my current and non-current assets, to your total liabilities, meaning your current and non-current. Can you see this will tell me for what's going to, now let's reword this. This is for me a projection of my ability to pay my debt for a period longer than 12 months. Right. So, because I want to see, can I pay my mortgage loan that's 20 years long? Will I be able to pay that? So, obviously, you want it to be at least 1-to-1. What does that mean? It means for every 1 rand assets, I've got 1 rand liabilities. But the ideal is to have it 2-to-1 or more. Okay. Now, let me quickly explain this to you now. You cannot say if it's less than 1-to-1. If it's say 0.6-to-1, you cannot say this business is insolvent. Because he's not insolvent. He might have problems paying his debts over time, but he's not insolvent. Please do not say that. So let's quickly think. What is insolvency? Insolvency is literally I'm getting to a place where now it's no longer just difficult to pay my debt. I'm unable to. I just don't have the money to do it. Right? So are you insolvent then? No. You still need to go to court and apply at the court, because the court needs to declare you insolvent. It's not something that just happens, right? Why? Because if we start working with companies next year, companies pays tax on their profit. So can you see now the receiver of revenue is involved? But not just that, any business that is registered to pay VAT, can you see if you are insolvent, now that's going to have an effect on SARS as well. So you can't just decide you're insolvent, because it's a legal process. Okay, but let's quickly think back to grade 10. Remember when we said debtor so-and-so was declared, can you see declared insolvent? His estate paid out 40 cents in the rand. The rest has to be written off as bad debt. Does that sound familiar? Now let's explain. So what happens if you declared insolvent? You're going to liquidize your assets. So if I liquidize my assets, it means it's going to be turned into cash. Okay? So I'm going to sell the building. I'm going to sell the cars. I'm going to sell the equipment. I'm going to sell my debtors. Did you know that you can sell your debtors to financial institutions? They're not going to pay you the full amount. If your debtors is, for instance, 7,000, they'll give you 7,000 less a certain percentage, because now they are going to take on those debtors and get the money from the debtors. You get what I'm saying? So you can literally, all your assets you can turn into money. Okay, so once I get the money, I compare now. Let's say this is now 0.4 to 1. Can you see that's where the 40 cents in the rand comes from? You see? Okay. And that is why it's a legal process, because now even for such, you're going to pay only 40 cents for every 1 rand that you owe. Can you see that is a big thing? Okay. So that's solvency. Now let's go to liquidity. Now when we go to liquidity, I'm going to teach you a song. But before I teach you the song, I just quickly want to write the song's words for you here. So, liquidity is 6 ratios. And you will see that those 6 ratios works in 2s. It's the current ratio and the asset test ratio. They work together. It's the debtor's collection and the creditor's payment. They work together. It's the stock on hand and it's the stock turnover. They work together. Okay. So the song goes like this. Okay, so let me explain to you. You guys, I want to explain. Yeah. So I told you they go 2-2. So now let's do the current ratio and the asset test ratio. So if I look, current ratio is current assets to current liabilities. Now let's quickly think. What is current assets? It's inventory, receivables, and cash. And your current liabilities, we must all know that doesn't change. It's your payables, your short-term loan, your bank overdraft. Okay. Now, I want this ratio to be more than 1, obviously, for obvious reasons. Right. Let me just quickly explain to you how I calculate this. Now, let's say this is 7 plus 4 plus 9 or 8 to, what is that? 12 and 7 gives me 19. And let's make this also a 9. No, okay, leave it as 7. 7 plus 4 plus 8 gives me 12, 7, 19. So let's make this a 10. Okay? So now, if I work it out, I'm going to start on the right hand. And I'm going to say 10 divided 10 gives me 1. But what I do on this side, I do on this side. So it's going to be 19 divided 10, and it's going to give me 1.9. So now that means, can you see that this actually looks like a dividing? If I must have two dots like this, it looks like a dividing. And I read from left to right, so it would be 19 divided 10. You guys get it? Okay, so remember when it's a ratio, the 1 is always on the right side. Always. Because if you're going to write for me 1 to 1.9, I'm going to mark it wrong because it means something different. So what does it mean? For every 1 rand current liability, I've got 1 rand 90 current asset to cover it. Okay. Now, remember when I said solvency is long-term debt? Can you see liquidity is short-term debt? Okay, sharp. Now, if I look at the asset test ratio, the asset test ratio is my liquid assets to current liabilities. Now, what is liquid assets? It's my receivables and my cash. Can you see? So in other words, it's my receivables and my cash to current liabilities. Or your total current assets less the stock. Can you see? Asset test does not have your stock in mind. You see? So now, let's use exactly the same example here. Can you see? I won't have the 7 anymore. So it's going to be 12 to 10. So the 10 divided 10 gives me 1. The 12 divided 10 gives me 1.2. So can you see, with my stock, I've got 1.921. But without my stock, I've got 1.221. Now let's say you didn't know your stock amount. Can you see that your stock, if I say 1.9 less 1.2, that my stock is 70 cents. That's my stock. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you see there's a healthy relationship here? Why? Because my stock is not more than my receivables and my cash. Let's say, for instance, this was 1.921 and this was 0.221. Can you now see what's happening there? Is that a lot of my cash is still sitting in my stock. You see? So that's why they do the two together. Because the two together will first of all tell them if they are liquid. And second of all, it will tell them if their stock is turning into cash. So we talk like this. I will say the stock, so here the stock is turning into cash fast enough, which is good. You'll see the asset test will always be smaller than the current, né? Because the current has got the stock as well. And show me a shop with no stock, and I'll show you a shop with no clients. Right? Okay, so there's always stock. But the secret is the stock needs to turn into cash, because that's the whole job of stock. Right? So if the stock doesn't move, like I said now, let's say it's 0.221, then you're going to say the cash is tied up in the stock. Does that make sense? Because the stock is not moving, it's standing still. You hear how I'm speaking? So what will you do if your stock is not moving?
You need to start.
Marketing. You're going to have to start marketing better, or pushing your marketing. And what else you can do is you can have a sale.
Yes.
You give discount. promotions. So that's the word. You're going to have lots of promotions. Okay? What else are you going to do? Are you going to replace the stock with the same type of stock?
No.
No, because obviously people that come to your shop is not interested in that kind of stock. So you're going to do a little bit of market research, and you're going to make sure the clients that come to you that you stock up on the products they want to buy. You see? Can you see what these two ratios tell you? They tell you a very big story. Okay.
So, ma'am.
Yes. So you will see here in thick, I said to you, the current ratio, we want it to be 2 to 1. We call it the norm. And the asset test, we want it to be 1 to 1. So the norm for current is 2 to 1, and asset test is 1 to 1. Can you see it's exactly half?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you do not mention the words norm. You just remember it because they will give you, for instance, 2026, 2025, right? And they will say to you, the current ratio for 2025 was 7.1 to 1, and 2026 is 3 to 1. So what's the first thing you think? Is this one better or worse than that one?
Worse.
It's better.
Better.
It's better because it's closer to the norm. So the idea is you do not want to have too much cash, ne? Because that means the cash that's too much, you could have put it in a fixed deposit or an investment. So it could have made it. You just want enough cash available to be able to operate healthily. You see, you don't want too much cash because then they're just lying there in your bank doing nothing. You see? So can you see 3 to 1 is a really good one because it says for every 1 rand I owe, I've got 3 rand current asset. So it's actually really good. I don't need 7 rand because now it means for every rand I owe, 6 rand is just 6 rand is lying around, not doing anything. You see, but you would rather have 2 rand for every 1 rand for in case. You see, you guys get what I'm saying? So with these ratios, you always keep in your mind the 2 to 1 and the 1 to 1, and you see which one is the closest to that, because that is the one that's better. Okay.
The better.
Yes.
The ratio.
Okay. Now the next they talk about stock turnover and stock on hand. Okay. So can you see here, I want you to go to stock on hand, number 4. When I look at stock, remember what I said when we did the on ratios? And I put the thingy here and I say, oh, I put the remote on the table. Which one is on top?
The remote.
The remote. The same is here. The stock on hand, ne? So the stock is on the hand. Okay, so the stock is on top. Right. So average stock, whenever they talk average, they actually mean half opening and closing, or half last year, this year. Old, new. You get what I'm doing here? So if my stock was 7 last year and it's 8 this year, I'm going to say 7 plus 8 divided by 2. I want to get the average of last year and this year. Over cost of sales, ne? Times 365, and then your answer would be in days. Or if you times with 12, your answer is in months. Now, which one is right? If they don't say that you must calculate the average stock on hand in days,
You choose one.
Then if you do it in months, it's also right. They have to specify, or otherwise the memo would have to mark both as right. Okay, now, what does this show me? This literally shows me how long will the stock last in my shop. So if I say I have stock on hand for 2 months, it means I've got enough stock in my shop to last me for 2 months. So now, if I'm the stock manager, I need to think about this, right? Because let's say I am importing jewelry and it comes by boat and the boat takes 6 months. Can you see I'm screwed if I only have stock on hand for 2 months? If the stock takes 6 months to get here. Can you see that you need to look at the scenarios of stuff? Can you see if I've got 2 months stock on hand and I'm a baker, I'm also screwed because it's going to spoil. I'm not going to sell it. So you always look at what the type of product is. So clothes, you always work in seasons. So there's 4 seasons, meaning you always want 3 months on hand. Okay, at least. So, but now, can you see stock is on top. Cost of sales is at the bottom. Now look at stock turnover. Can you see what happens? It's literally flipping. So I see in my mind the stock on top, cost of sales at the bottom, and stock turnover, it literally goes like this. It flips. So now the cost of sales is on top and the average stock is at the bottom. And can you see, you're not going to times with anything, but your answer is going to be times. So what is stock turnover? Stock turnover is literally how many times a year you changed all your stock. Now I'm asking you, can't you just see it? No. Because the shop keeps a constant stock level, which means, have you ever gone into Checkers to buy chocolates, and when you get to the chocolate aisle, it's empty except for one Kit Kat lying there? Ne? And then you say, oh, I'll not eat the Kit Kat. No, it doesn't work that way. Always when you go into the shop is full. Does it mean they sell nothing? No, it just means they are constantly replacing when stock is sold. And we call that they're keeping a constant stock level. And why is that? Because we, as customers, function on choice. If you go into a shop, you want choice. If you go into a shop and there's just one little Kit Kat lying there on the aisle, you're going to think, what's wrong with this thing? I'm not going to buy that one. This one is, or most probably that one is old. Ne? You're not going to think good things. Our mind is wired like that. If there's abundance and an overflow, then I feel comfortable and safe because now I can choose. And that is what shops work with. And that is why they have to calculate this. Now let's quickly just make this a little bit more logical. If I say to you, my stock on hand, my stock on hand is 2 months. Right, let's work in months because our heads work better in months. Now let's say my stock on hand is 2 months. What's going to be my stock turnover then? Does that make sense? Let's go through it. If I have stock on hand for 2 months, it means I replace it every 2 months in a year. And how many times will I replace it in the year? 6 times. Can you see? So they are inverse. Let's try this again. If I say to you my stock on hand is 12 months. So I've got enough stock on hand for 12 months. What's my stock turnover? Once. I only changed it once. Okay. And can you see that would actually be okay if you're selling big things like houses and cars and Rolexes. But it would definitely be a problem if I'm selling bread. Okay. So that's how those two work together. Now let's look at the other two, is the debtors and the creditors.
Ma'am,
Yes.
will also be influenced, like if we use the daily, if we use the days instead of the.
We always use the days. It's just better to comment on it if in your head you swap it to, because if it's days, how many days is 2 months? 60 days. So if 60 days is on hand, it's basically 2 months. So the turnover is going to be 6. Okay, you guys get it? So if they say work in days, it's still fine, you work in days, but in your head just flip it to months, because it's easier to comment in your head to see a picture of how it goes. It's difficult. If I say to you, like yesterday I did with the grade 12s, and they had power rates that they were selling, the stock, and they had stock on hand for 90 days. So it's easier to see, oh, it's stock on hand, actually 3 months, so 90 days is actually very long for food. Okay, so that's a problem. Okay.
So we won't get like any odd days, like 18 days. And
Of course you will. Of course you will. Of course you will. Let's go. So don't worry about stuff that you don't have control over. Just understand, what is it that I'm explaining to you? I'm explaining to you the stock on hand tells me how long before the stock in my shop is running out. So it will help me to plan. Whereas the stock turnover tells me how fast the stock is selling out. So if I bring those two together, immediately I will know when to purchase new stock. Okay. Now, if I look at debtors and creditors, it's very important. The rule here, never pay creditors before debtors pay us.
Oh.
You never pay your creditors before your debtors pay you. Because what are you doing now? So let's just quickly think of how things work. Okay, I'll go on tomorrow.